Traveling with photography gear and knowing what to pack can actually be pretty tricky. If you overpack, you can end up getting frustrated and it will slow you down. And if you underpack, you can end up missing shots. Now, you don't need the latest cameras to take good shots on your travels. However, knowing which cameras to take, which lenses to take, and how to pack can make a massive difference to what you capture while you're traveling. I'm always looking to keep my travel gear as lightweight and minimal as possible. I find the whole process of overpacking, bringing multiple suitcases and backpacks to be really frustrating, and it really takes the fun out of travel. So let's start things off by talking about the main camera I use while traveling, which is this Fujifilm X-T5. This has been my go-to camera since its launch, both for photography and video, and I use it both for my professional work and personal photography too. One of the main advantages of the X-T5 over say an X-E4 or say an X100V is while the photography is really good on those cameras too, the X-T5 is just much better when it comes to recording video. Now these days, whenever I travel, I'm capturing a mix of photography and video wherever I go. With the X-T5, it's real easy to switch between video and photography mode. It's just a flick of a switch and it remembers all your settings when you go between the two modes. I always bring two cameras while I'm traveling. This is simply in case my main camera breaks down, I can switch to the second camera. And for me, this is the Ricoh GR3X. I just love how small this camera is, fits in my pocket, takes great photos, and weighs absolutely nothing. And in fact, depending on the location I'm in, there's actually been times where I've chosen to use the Ricoh GR3X over the X-T5. For example, if I'm in an area where I feel uneasy walking around with a large camera, or the camera I'm using is picking up a lot of attention, then I'll switch to the Ricoh GR. Nobody really notices this camera. It does look like a cheap tourist camera, and you kind of just blend into your surroundings and look like a tourist walking around taking some snapshots to show to your friends back home. Next up, let's talk about the lenses I travel with. First up, the Fujifilm 16-55 f2.8. Now I actually don't use this lens too often back home outside of my professional work. When it comes to street photography, I prefer using Fujifilm's prime lenses. However, while traveling, you may only be in a given location for a short amount of time, so it makes a lot more sense to use a zoom lens where you can use it to capture many different types of shots and video compared to if you were using a prime. Secondly, when you're traveling, each time you swap your lens around, there's a small chance that you damage your sensor, something gets in there, some water gets in there, and that will ruin your camera, or it can affect the shots and video you capture from that point onwards. As for the prime lenses I use, I always bring the Fujifilm 35mm f1.4 and 56mm f1.2. These are my two favorite Fujifilm prime lenses. I use them all the time for street photography here in London, and they come with me whenever I travel too. I know Fujifilm have released newer versions of both of these lenses, but I like how these look, I like the photos I'm getting, so I'm in no rush to upgrade. Alright, so let's move on to the accessories I always travel with. Firstly, and this is a recent addition to my travel gear, it's the Synology B drive. I mainly use this to back up photos when I'm traveling, so I keep a copy of all the photos and video I record on my MacBook, and then I use this external as a backup. It takes up absolutely no space and it weighs nothing. So the B drive does have a couple more cool features included, like being able to sync between multiple computers or making it easier to transfer files. I mainly use it as a backup, but for those of you interested, I'll leave a link in the description where you can learn some more. So next up, it's my earphones, which are the AirPod 2 from Apple. Music plays a big part in my everyday life as well as my photography. I'm always listening to music while editing. It helps me get in the mood and focus. So the noise cancellation is really impressive. If you're on a train or on a plane, it really does help block out the sound of engines or cars going past or anything in the background. So I bring both my MacBook and iPad while I travel. The MacBook is my main device. On there, I'm organizing my files, editing my video, and then the iPad serves as a backup to the Mac in case the Mac breaks down. Recently, I've actually preferred using my iPad to edit my photography over my Mac. The whole experience of using your hand and the pen to edit your photos directly just feels a lot more tactile, and it gives me a bit more control than I do when I use the trackpad on my MacBook. As for the software I'm using, for video it's DaVinci Resolve, and for photography it's Adobe Lightroom. Being able to share the photos I take while traveling and print off my favorite shots on the go has been really valuable. There's been times where I've met people on my travels, taken a portrait shot of them, and then directly shared the photo with them. And that's been a really special experience, and it's the reason why whenever I can, I bring an Instax printer with me. Usually I take either the Fujifilm wide printer or their square printer. The quality of prints from these Instax printers is actually really good, and you can also print photos directly from your phone to the printer. So you don't actually need a Fujifilm camera to use this printer. You can use any camera, transfer the photo to your phone, and then from there, you can just print it directly with these printers. Okay, so let's talk about how I pack all of this stuff. Now, when I'm traveling, I try to bring my bag and suitcase on me whenever possible. I don't like pulling my suitcase down below in the cargo. It reduces the risk of something going wrong or something breaking, and secondly, it makes going into airports and coming out of airports a lot quicker too. The majority of my luggage goes into a cabin size suitcase, and then I use the Peak Design travel cubes, 2 small ones and 1 large, for all of my clothes, and I aim to pack between 7 to 10 days worth of clothes. The important thing here is to avoid packing bulky items like jeans or thick jumpers and jackets. Brands like Uniqlo, they have all sorts of lightweight gear, both for winter and summer, which folds up really small. Second up, I use this Stubble & Co backpack. I've gone through so many backpacks and tested so many backpacks, and this one by far has been my favorite. It's compact, it's waterproof, it still fits my 14-inch MacBook Pro. I usually use some sort of camera cube case inside, which I place my camera and lenses into. This bag also doubles up as my walk around bag when I'm traveling. Next up is this Uniqlo sling bag. Over the years, I've spent so much money and tried so many different sling bags, but this one is both the cheapest and best one I've used. I can fit my camera in there. If not, I can get a couple camera lenses, my batteries and accessories in there too. And when I'm not using it, it folds up into nothing, it weighs nothing, so it's really easy to carry. Next up are my 2 electronics bags. Now these are really important while you're traveling. The first one is the electronics bag from Peak Design, and inside this thing I have absolutely everything. I have high-speed data wires, I have iPhone wires, I have Ethernet cables, pretty much everything I'd ever need on the electronics front while traveling. I also use this smaller electronics bag. I'm not sure which brand it is, but I picked it up off Amazon. And here I keep my day-to-day stuff. So battery chargers, a small wall plug. These ones from Minix are the best ones I've come across so far. They're small, lightweight, and I've had no issues charging my MacBook or my cameras or phones or anything. So that's the gear I travel with. As I said, I like to keep things as simple and organized as possible, while also having backups of gear so I don't run into any issues while traveling. Also, for those of you interested, I have a link to all the gear I use down below in the description. But that's about it for this episode. A huge thanks for watching this and supporting this channel, for the comments, the likes, everything. I really appreciate it. The fact that you take time out of your day to support this channel really does mean the world to me. So huge thanks to you, and I'll catch you in the next one.